As you drive west along the A2 road, look right and you'll see signs for the IRSP, Palestinian flags, and the Irish tricolor. All signs you're in a very Republican area. Today we're on a tour of sites to do with the Troubles, starting with the Warrenpoint ambush, also called the Massacre of Narrow Water. The Newry River flows south and east from a town of the same name, which was a hotbed for political violence in the 1970s. Warrenpoint was the greatest British loss of life in the Troubles and the worst loss for the Para Regiment since World War II. The A2 road hugs the north bank of the Newry River and stretches southeast of town, turning upwards at the Ballykindler Barracks. To the south is the heavily forested Cooley Peninsula on the opposite side of the border. This is a part of the Republic of Ireland outside of British Army jurisdiction. And the British knew how vulnerable the A2 road was. The Cooley Peninsula was heavily forested and connected to country roads leading further south into rural Ireland. On the day of the bombing, the army decided to use the A2 anyway in order to avoid setting a pattern. On August 27, 1979, their convoy made the 1-hour drive from their barracks towards town. At 1640 hours, an 800-pound fertilizer bomb hidden on a truck bed to the side of the road detonated, tripped by provisional IRA members laying in watch across the river. The blast ripped through the last vehicle in the convoy, a 4-ton troop carrier. Immediately, 6 of the 8 soldiers in this vehicle were killed. The driver was also killed, ripped apart beyond recognition. 2 soldiers survived, and the 2 leading vehicles came to a stop. According to the soldiers, they came under heavy gunfire from men on the Cooley Peninsula. The Irish police south of the border arrested 2 men on motorcycles and found gunshot residue on their hands. More on that in a moment. A better understanding of local geography might help to explain some of these facts. The IRA had been studying how authorities respond to terror incidents. This is the most important part of this video, and it's immeasurably practical in 2025. If you take one thing away, let it be this: there is always a second bomb. 32 minutes after the initial blast, a second 800-pound bomb detonated, killing 10 more paras and 2 men from the Queen's Own Highlanders. The IRA was counting on the army to use the hardened gates behind this castle as an incident command post. The bomb was placed with this in mind, and a photographer captured the exact millisecond the second blast occurred in this surreal photo. The use of a second explosion to target first responders is now a commonplace insurgent tactic. It's briefed in most militaries. The second blast killed Lieutenant Colonel David Blair, of whom only an epaulette could be found. Major Peter Firstman's face was ripped off and thrown into the River Newry. His friend had to use it to identify him. First responders also reported that body fragments were floating in the river and stuck in trees, while the driver of the truck only had a pelvis left, and that was fused to the floor. Another strange incident happened here on that day, the shooting of the Hudson cousins. William Hudson was 29 years old, a native of London, working with his 25-year-old cousin Barry, who lived in Dingle across the island. They were partners in Hudson Amusements, working at that time in Omeath, just south of Warrenpoint and the border in the Republic of Ireland. Hearing the explosion, they began walking north to see what was the matter. The Cooley Peninsula is heavily forested, and they hiked through the trees to get a better look. Barry was shot in the arm and fell to the ground. He looked up and saw William fall dead from a shot to the head. They'd been shot by paras who believed them to be the IRA gunmen. For what it's worth, the RUC investigation noted that the paras may have mistaken cooking off ammunition for the sounds of shots from across the river. If this were the case, you might be asking, what of the 2 provisional IRA men captured immediately afterwards by Irish police? Let me mention here the killings of RUC Chief Superintendent Harry Breen and Superintendent Bob Buchanan, which happened a few miles to the southwest of the Warrenpoint ambush years later. And we're coming up now on the ambush site of the RUC Superintendent Harry Breen. The N1 road connects Belfast and Dublin and was very well defended in the Troubles. Watchtowers had been erected to prevent arms smuggling, but a specific area along Edentober Road, south of Jonesboro, was a blind spot to British authorities that the IRA very freely operated in. Paramilitary checkpoints were very common here, and the area was heavily Irish Republican, so it was usually IRA checkpoints. The British couldn't easily chase anybody that was passing through this area. This is what made the double killing so easy, even when it happened in the late 1980s. The two provisional IRA men taken in by Irish police, if they hadn't fired from the Cooley Peninsula, were probably not far away practicing maneuvers, having fired their rifles recently. And just over the river to the south in the Republic of Ireland, you have the site of the Flagstaff Hill incident. By May 1976, security in County Armagh was abysmal. This was several years before the Warrenpoint ambush. 3 British soldiers at an observation post had just been killed the previous November, and in January, 10 Protestant workers were massacred. British Prime Minister Harold Wilson was pressured into acknowledging that the SAS was actually present in Northern Ireland. And this is the location of the Flagstaff Hill incident. Over here is the Republic of Ireland. The SAS were then being used as a sort of black ops, and some months before the Flagstaff Hill incident, they had to admit they'd kidnapped Sean McKenna, an IRA member wanted for attempted murder. They illegally entered the Republic of Ireland, seized him, brought him into Northern Ireland, and then promptly arrested him. When this was discovered, it naturally made many wonder how many mysterious deaths and disappearances the SAS could be responsible for. Some began to call this a dirty war. 1 month before the incident at Flagstaff Hill, tensions again flared between Britain and the Republic of Ireland. Loyalist paramilitaries were operating openly, trained by the SAS to travel outside of the UK's jurisdiction, where they would then independently carry out assassinations. Seamus Ludlow was killed 4 days before the Flagstaff Hill incursion, and the Republic set up military and police along the border, suspecting further attacks to follow. Over here is Northern Ireland. At this point, Flagstaff Hill's checkpoint was manned by Irish police and the Irish Army. This area directly overlooks the site of the Warrenpoint ambush, and the SAS would not have accidentally ended up on the opposite side of the river. The cops stopped a car with 2 men, both of whom seemed very evasive to their questions. They noticed then that one of the men had a map held against his chest, obviously covering up a gun. The 2 men refused to get out of the car until the Irish Army emerged from the bushes, aiming their rifles at them. We're crossing the border with the United Kingdom right now, and this is actually probably the route that the SAS took. And we are in the UK. Right here. Police found a submachine gun and a Browning pistol. It was learned that the 2 SAS had set out to retrieve 2 others who had been illegally deployed south of the border. When the 2 arrested men failed to answer radio calls, 4 more left in a convoy of 2 cars, picking up the 2 deployed south of the border, meaning a total of 6 border incursions had taken place. Irish Garda saw a shotgun in one of the cars that matched several still unsolved murders in that area and decided to arrest the men. After a diplomatic kerfuffle, the British Embassy in Dublin responded by paying the £40,000 bail and flying the SAS out on a helicopter. And here we are in Glenanne at the site of the Glenanne gang. I would like to learn a whole lot more about this because this is the briefest possible touch I can give to it, but this is truly a dirty war and one of the most insidious things I've ever read. Now, the Glenanne gang was a secret and informal Ulster Loyalist alliance that carried out attacks against Irish Republicans in the 1970s. The membership of the gang was mostly British Army and UDR, police from the Royal Ulster Constabulary, and members of the Ulster Volunteer Force. 25 UDR soldiers and RUC police were named as suspected members. Beyond targeting Republicans, this group infamously targeted civilians totally outside of the conflict. According to Lethal Allies, different iterations of the group killed about 120 people. And we're on Ballyain Road, heading up to Lock Road for the site of the Glenanne gang's main operations. This is Ballyain Road. On top of that is the site of the Glenanne gang, and about 5 minutes down this road, I'll just keep the camera rolling, was the killings on Gray Hillen Road, which were responsible, the Glenanne gang was responsible for. Mostly Catholic civilians with no Republican paramilitary links. It was a part of the tactic of tension. The Castle report investigated 76 killings that the locals suspected were tied to this gang, all of whom knew the gang existed. Well, this is where the shooting happened, a tenth of a mile right up the road. There was a shooting that happened here, and then 20 miles away-ish, 10 minutes beyond that, there was another shooting, but it happened right down this road here. This group is believed to have carried out the Dublin and Monaghan bombings, which killed 34 people. They also set up fake army checkpoints where they did their dirty work. The gang itself never claimed credit for any of their attacks, but used a shell group that they called Protestant Action Force. The Glenanne gang raised money through robberies and smash and grabs and would claim credit for the attacks of other groups to throw investigators from their trail. This farmhouse was the headquarters of the Glenanne gang, owned by James Mitchell. Billy Hanna approached him and asked to use his property as an arms dump for the UVF, the Ulster Volunteer Force. This specific home stored the bombs before they were transported to Dublin, where they killed dozens of people in rush hour traffic.